Hello, viewers, and welcome to the latest GA Huddle. Tim Paul here, and I'm with Kevin Dennis, SVP Canada of the Innovation Group, and Troy Ross, President of TRM Public Affairs. Guys, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Good to be here.
Looking forward to speaking all things Canada with you guys. The timing of our recording is perfectly placed because iGaming Ontario recently released some figures. I'm sure you guys will be glued in on those, and we can maybe talk about them a bit. 1.4 billion in revenue for the first year and 35 billion or so in handle. I reached out to you guys because you recently spoke in our magazine, our March-April edition, about kind of the first few months of Ontario regulated market, legalized gaming. Can you give us an overview of the kind of things you discussed? Start with you, Troy, and the kind of takeaways from Ontario early on.
Sure. Thanks for having us. In that initial interview, we focused really on the Ontario iGaming market and didn't really spend much time talking about iGaming market or developments in the other 9 provinces. And it's probably important context for your viewers to understand some of the history for gaming in Canada.
Yeah.
Traditionally, all gaming in Canada is operated by provincial crown agencies or lottery corporations. And these lottery corporations are similar to what you would find in US jurisdictions or in Europe, except that in addition to offering paper-based lottery products, they typically operate all terrestrial casinos, racetrack slot properties, video lottery terminal networks, and have recently added online gaming websites to that product mix. The challenge, I suppose, for some of those lotteries is that monopolies are really unenforceable over the internet. And they've had a difficult time competing with the big global iGaming operators. And those operators have had unfettered access to Canada for the past 20 plus years. So we talked a bit about that. We talked about the fact that Ontario launched a consultation almost 3 years ago. And we talked a fair bit about most of the online gaming operators reacting quite favorably to the extensive and transparent consultation process undertaken by the government. That consultation led to the regulatory regime that was launched just a year ago, and that regime, by pretty much all accounts, is a sensible, reasonable tax rate at 20% of GGR, and I think we'll get into the first year of reporting, which I think suggests that the Ontario model has been a success by any metric.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think we could take that point and perhaps head to Kevin. The numbers that were released this year, as I say, the timing is good for this discussion. I guess they provide the proof in the pudding, because I was going to ask people we've talked to in the industry, affiliates, some operators, they maybe were expecting a little bit more in terms of the financials when it comes to Ontario. But you guys in the article, and as Troy said, they're quite positive on the first, looking back overall on the first year. I guess the numbers really speak for themselves. What is your take on the performance so far? Could it have done better in some areas, or really, as Troy just said, is that are we looking at a resounding success really?
No, it's a good question, Tim, and the timing is great here. We were just at an event a few days ago to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the Ontario iGaming market. So April 4th, 2022, it opened, and we had the industry together a few days ago, and the numbers did come out, and they're quite significant, as you mentioned. Places Ontario and one of the top 5 jurisdictions in North America. Doesn't include the provincial government, the OLG's figures as well. When you put those together, it's quite significant. What's going on here is incredible. Probably 24, 36 months ago, maybe besides Troy, a few others maybe didn't see this coming. And what you have here now is, after year 1, and it still is early, but you've got a healthy environment. You've got 40 plus operators, I think 75 to 80 websites. and everyone's healthy and doing well. Even the provincial, the OLG stated their figures the other day and said they're doing well. There's been good revenue growth on all sides. And anecdotally, I think the land-based gaming operators and other business lines are still doing well. We're coming out of COVID. The timing was great. So, I think the numbers speak for themselves.
I think just to add to that, Tim, I think it's worth mentioning that perhaps some of those inputs expressing concern about the financial returns are reflective of Q1 and Q2 in Ontario, because there was a process to bring existing operators into the compliance model, and so in the first quarter and second quarter of the rollout of the regulatory regime, there was only a handful of registered operators. The bulk of those registrants came in to the compliance model in Q3. And so as a result, the real financial story and future projections, I think, are better reflected looking at Q3 and Q4. And when you look at those are about 25 billion in total wager and just shy of $1 billion in gross gaming revenue. So looking at those last two quarters, I think you get a truer sense of what the financial return is going to be for Ontario.
Yeah, I think that's you've broken that down. It's an important point you made, because I guess if you're looking at 1.4 billion, if the kind of the bulk of that came in Q3 and Q4, yeah, that certainly lays the basis. And by and large, the regulations and the system that you guys have already mentioned that has been put in place in Ontario, has sort of seen quite universal praise. You mentioned outlooks and projections. If we were to talk about kind of the year ahead, if you both had something to say on this, but maybe starting with Troy, what are we potentially looking at? And I guess, as you say, we're looking into Q3 and Q4 as an indicator of that kind of thing.
Yeah, Q3 was about 11.5 billion. Q4, in total wager. Q4 was about 14 billion. Between the two, almost $1 billion in gross gaming revenue. So forecasting those figures out over a full year, that back of the envelope math here, but that's nearly 2 billion in GGR annually. At a 20% tax rate, which is the tax rate in Ontario, the Ontario Treasury should see about $400 million, and that's $400 million that they weren't earning in the previous year. And as Kevin pointed out, that revenue is over and above what the Ontario Lottery Corporation site is earning, which is reportedly in the hundreds of millions as well. So looking forward for Ontario, $400 million that you didn't have the previous year, that's good news for the Treasury. Looking forward to what this means in the rest of Canada, I think that the tax and regulate model speaks for itself. And these results are going to capture the attention of provincial politicians, right? The Ontario model has pretty much done everything that it's set out to do, which is drive more money to Treasury, create more choice for players, introduce strong, responsible gaming standards, and channel the vast majority of the gray market play into a regulated market. By those metrics, this has been a huge success. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, when you talk about Ontario and operators right now, if you're an operator looking at which markets to go into, and you're looking at North America, the question, this one for Kevin: how does Ontario rank on the global stage or the international stage?
Well, I mean, I think just to add on, and I think it's similar to what Troy was just mentioning. When you have such an open environment and invite a lot of industry participants, the shift of to the regulated market now has been a boon for everyone. I think that other jurisdictions that haven't opened up yet are going to look at Ontario, closely monitor it. Those who aren't here are going to watch and learn and see, are there opportunities for them to participate in this industry. other vendors, other suppliers. So, I think the next year is still going to be about the operators probably product innovation, adjusting their structures, their new partnerships, other opportunities that occur when so many people are involved, so many different operators. We have a diverse group here, from big branded operators to local homegrown to foreign operators. So it appears there's space for everyone to carve out their own opportunity, their competitive edge, their secret sauce, and what they bring to the table. So I expect to see more. I don't know what the total number is and how many are out there, but I think we can expect it to continue to be competitive. I do think there'll be some new and other partnerships, new entrants, and people will be watching it. It's we mentioned it's the first of its kind in Canada. It came at a great time, and I think that we're going to learn a lot more as an industry. The magic word was collaboration the other day, Troy, when we were at the conference, at the event, and it's amazing how everyone's coming together to work together to put in what everybody needs from a customer perspective and from an operator perspective.
A question I might throw out to open to the floor to both of you. We've talked a lot about what the industry in Ontario has got right, which, as you say, collaboration is a word that's often missing, especially when it comes to regulator and operator in other jurisdictions. I think Ontario definitely got that right. But is there anything that, looking back on that first year, maybe some teething problems, is there anything that could be improved moving forward? Because, no market is perfect. Is there anything that stands out as maybe, this is something that, the region could address moving forward?
Listen, I think anytime a government introduces a new regulatory environment, there are bound to be some growing pains. Mm-hmm. And I think looking at the goals that the government of Ontario set when they began the process and mirroring those against what have we seen in the first year, I think you tick a lot of boxes here. Mm-hmm. But are there things that the operators might tweak, might make some changes to? Of course there are, and that's bound to be the case whenever you have a new regulatory environment and you have the regulated and the regulator. The regulator are always going to seek some tweaks to the model. I remain hopeful that those issues will get resolved as the industry matures, but by and large, I think that the feedback from the industry is this is a very sensible regulatory regime. It's a commercially sound model. There are things that different operators would tweak and adjust here and there, and hopefully over the next 12 months we'll resolve those, and we'll come back to you 12 months from now and say it's the perfect regime. But the reality is, I think as a case study, Ontario is among the best places to do business.
Absolutely. Kevin, any thoughts on that, or should we talk maybe a little bit about outside of Ontario?
Well, I think what Troy mentioned there about a sensible approach and really balanced all the levers to make things work here in year one, from an open environment to player protection to tax rates and that sort of thing. And as other jurisdictions in Canada look at Ontario and have to fix that, to apply it to their respective jurisdictions, from a population, from a product perspective and what they have now, to take those learnings and see what makes sense for each of those provinces.
Yeah, that's going to be that's a good segue. That's going to be my final sort of question and topic for you guys. The rest of Canada, are we going to be seeing many conversations, with other provinces? Can we expect much movement there? And what are the next steps for Canada as a whole? Because when we talk about Canadian regulated iGaming at the moment, we're really only talking about the big market on Ontario.
Well, I'll jump in here. I think I touched on it a little bit earlier. The Ontario Treasury is going to see $400 million over the next year, and that's $400 million that they didn't have before. In previous years, that money was headed offshore, and in 9 of the other 10 provinces, that money continues to move to go offshore. So Ontario is a proven model. Got to prove that the regulation can and does work in this country. I would be shocked if other provincial governments are not going to explore a range of different options to repatriate some of that revenue through a taxation model. Because the reality is those revenue numbers are simply too big to ignore, particularly during a recession when ministers of finance across the country are going to be looking at options. I think they're obligated to consider regulation as a viable public policy option here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Kevin, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I just add in given the early successes here, it has been a success, and we heard it once again. It's just fresh in our minds from the event on Tuesday. In the private sector, we heard from them. They want to expand. They want new opportunities. They want to meet customer needs. They want to provide product choice and differentiation. So, they want to be included. They want to participate. So, I think there's going to be a lot of eyes watching in the back half of 23. If any of us could tell you what's going to happen and where, but just closely watch as things go into the back half of the year, I think, and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. But gentlemen, thanks very much for joining me. Like you said, there were plenty of eyes on Ontario and Canada more widely for the next year. Good luck to both of you with your ventures, but good luck for the rest of the market as well. Like I say, plenty of exciting times ahead.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it.